This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Although slavery was abolished in the United States many years ago, American society has indicators of a modern form of hidden slavery that was legalized according to the 13th Amendment. This controversial topic is discussed in 13th, a documentary that was directed by Ava Duvernay and released by Netflix in 2016. The other important themes accentuated in the film include mass incarceration, racism, social bias, the gender issue, the impact on the environment, the social impact, the ineffectiveness of a prison system, and education. The purpose of this paper is to analyze 13th in the context of addressing the listed themes and discuss its relevance for being used in educational settings. In her documentary, Duvernay presents the issue of mass incarceration of Black male persons as an American variant of modern slavery. In this context, the following topics should be discussed in their connection to each other: mass imprisonment, racism, the gender issue, and social bias. According to Duvernay's message, American society is inclined to refer to slavery for profit, and mass incarceration of African American males contributes to this economic goal. Furthermore, this tradition has its origins in Jim Crow laws and the provocative positions of Richard Nixon, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump discussed in the film. The problem is that racial and social prejudice is reflected in the United States Constitution in the form of the 13th Amendment, which allows choosing some kind of slavery for punishment. It seems to be typical of American society to shift the visions used in the 18th to 19th century regarding African American people that are closely based on racism and social bias to the 20th to 21st century. In addition, there is also a gender issue, as African American males represent a significant portion of the imprisoned population in the United States. Thus, more than 35% of the imprisoned population is made up of African Americans. According to the behaviorism-related theory by John Broadus Watson, children's views, reactions, and actions are formed by their environments and parents' ideas. A similar idea is proposed by Albert Bandura and his concept of social learning. From this perspective, Duvernay's documentary represents how the ideas about the possibility of slavery and racism are shared between Americans from one generation to another. As a result, there is a question about what can be changed in society and education, as well as the public's perceptions of people of color, to alter this tendency. Other issues that need to be discussed concerning the film include the impact of mass incarceration on the environment and the adverse effects of the environment on this phenomenon, as well as social impacts. The problem is that the number of prisoners tends to increase each year, as it is stated in the documentary. Thus, in the 1970s, almost 200,000 people were in United States prisons, and today this number is more than 2 million people. There can be several causes of this situation, including the environmental factor. According to Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, an individual develops under the impact of different environmental impacts, including the family, school, friends, neighbors, mass media, and community. As a result, these subjects influence what choices will be made by people when they are adults. Under the community's impact, African American males can choose a criminal path, and under the media's impact, white people can regard Black males as potential criminals. One more important issue to discuss in the context of the 13th is the ineffectiveness of the prison system in the United States. Thus, prisons in the country are overcrowded, minorities who represent more than 60% of the overall imprisoned population are discriminated against and usually abused, and Black males are used as the extremely cheap labor force. As a result, prisoners just work to address the needs of corporations to generate more profits without opportunities to develop their potential and transform to become part of American society in the future. From this perspective, prison does not work as a correctional facility, and the problem is that these people used as slaves can become even more traumatized because of their experience in prison. Referring to Duvernay's message in the documentary, it is possible to state that the overall prison system in the United States is developed to address economic and political needs and interests. Thus, its social correctional effect seems to be limited. The situation of overcrowding in prisons in the United States cannot contribute to helping prisoners, African American males, or representatives of other gender and race, to develop their potential and realize an effective social role. It is also important to discuss the ideas presented in DuVernay's 13th with a focus on modern education in the United States. Taking into account Burrus Frederick Skinner's ideas regarding reinforcers and punishers to form people's behavior, it is possible to state that the fear of being imprisoned can work as a punisher for preventing criminal actions. However, the problem is that, according to DuVernay, this aspect does not contribute to reducing the number of prisoners. There are other sources of mass incarceration, and they are closely associated with racial and economic factors. Therefore, today young persons often do not understand what particular actions can lead to imprisonment, especially for people of color. For a pre-service teacher, DuVernay's 13th can provide a range of topics to think over while discussing the role of school and society in forming the personality. From this perspective, it is important to answer the questions about the potential impact of education on decreases in rates of crimes and on social stability in minority communities. African American men are often arrested and incarcerated because they not only act like criminals but they are also assumed to act like criminals. Therefore, a pre-service teacher should think over about the role of a class environment in forming this prejudice. After watching 13th, it is possible to adapt some of the ideas presented in the film to discuss with high school students. Firstly, it is necessary to discuss this film while explaining the nature of the 13th Amendment, as well as the Sixth Amendment that guarantees criminal defendants' right to an impartial jury among other rights. Secondly, it is important to analyze this film in the context of discussing the problem of racism in modern American society. It is important to demonstrate how hidden racism can become real while speaking about the prison system and criminal justice bias in the United States. DuVernay's 13th is the documentary that makes the viewer reconsider his or her vision of American society today in terms of the problem of mass incarceration. This film should be analyzed by educators to use some of its parts in their discussions of racism and slavery. Furthermore, the film can be recommended for high school students to discuss not only the phenomenon of modern slavery but also the impact of social prejudice and environments on individuals and their life paths. Did you like this themes in Ava Duvernay's 13th sample? To get more works like this one, make sure to check out the database of academic paper examples at ivypanda.com. You will find thousands of samples for all your study needs.